Hey, it's Truck and Tanker Yanker, and I got a story for you. Matter of fact, I got two stories for you. One is about an Oregon State trooper that could have nailed me to the wall and didn't. And the other is about an Oregon State trooper who nailed me to the wall. Be right back.
Bragger, this is the Truck and Tanker Yanker. I'm 10-8 with my 10 in the wind. My heaters are glowing, my manners are showing. Line her up and let her go, come on. I'm your travel agent with a story to tell. Let's go for a ride.
Hey, it's your Truck and Tanker Yanker, and I am back. All right? Now, just to start with, a little bit of housekeeping. Now, we are on a subscription drive right now, so if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. If you like this story or any of the other stories that I've got, give me a thumbs up. Hit the bell, get notified about when a new story pops up, and I'll rip right into the story. Here we go. All right. It was probably in the mid-90s. I was in Oregon, and I had trucks domiciled there. I had my own trucks domiciled with a large nationwide carrier that only used contractors. They didn't have any of their own trucks, and they had thousands of contractors that were contracted, and I was one of those thousands of contractors. And if I had a friend who was a fellow contractor who had, I think, 5 trucks leased to that particular company. And anyway, he had somebody drop the ball on him at the last minute, and which happens a lot when you're got employees. And I know employees like to gripe about their bosses, but I tell you what, bosses can gripe about their employees too. I'll tell you that much. And in this particular situation, driver just quit at a moment's notice when he's supposed to do a dedicated run. And this particular company that we were leased to was, it's almost seemed like they were always looking for an excuse to fire you or cancel your contract, to get out of your contract. I don't know why, but they always threatened us that we'd lose our contract. Well, if you have one truck leased to a company, you're making a truck payment, which could be anywhere from $1,200 to $1,700 a month. And I'm talking, this is, mid-90s, all right? It's not now. Now trucks are $40,000 more expensive than they were in the mid-90s. So, but back then it was, if you got a good used truck, be $1,200 a month. Brand spanking new truck back then, $1,700 a month, all right? So, and then you got insurance that you got to pay. If it just even holds still, you got to pay insurance. You got to pay your IRP, your registration plate, and all the different states you're registered in, and that type of thing. And so there are fixed costs associated. If you don't run, you can go bankrupt just parking your truck on the fence, because it's just like having a car payment. If you don't make your car payment, somebody's going to take it. Well, when you own a whole bunch of big trucks, if you don't make any money with the big truck, you can't make the payment for the big truck, which means you lose your big truck, all right? So, in this situation, this friend, fellow contractor, he's like, guy dropped the ball on me. He says, can you help me out? I'm frantic. This company is going to cancel my contract if I don't find somebody to do it. And I was like, well, okay, I'll help you out. And I'd helped him out before, and so I just said I'd help him out and do it again. And so anyway, he's like, I'll have all the trailers hooked up for you and everything like that. I pulled 2 trailers, and I'll have them all hooked up for you. You just be ready to go when you get here. So anyway, so I get there, and he wasn't only ready to go, he had it all hooked up. Truck was parked at the gate. We had to check in and out of a guard shack, and they checked your bolt seals and all that kind of stuff. And it was all parked there, ready to go, truck idling, aired up. He's like, I did your pre-trip for you. He's like, go, 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 because it was going to be late. And you couldn't be late. This company would get rid of you if you were late. So he's like, go, go, go. Well, I jumped in the truck, and away I went on down the road. And I had about, I think it was about 220 miles, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood, that I had to go meet somebody else coming up out of California. And then we swapped trailers, and then, I just give you the names of the towns. I was going from Portland to Wolf Creek, Oregon, which is in southern Oregon. Somebody can figure out the miles, but I guessed it 220. It might have been 250. I don't remember. Anyway, from Portland to Wolf Creek, Oregon, down, must have been close to California, and then I was meeting somebody that was coming out of Sacramento, I believe, and anyway, so way I went. His truck wasn't governed. My trucks were all governed, and it's because your truck and tanker yanker's got a lead foot, and it's not just to keep my drivers going slow, it's to keep your truck and tanker yanker from going slow too, or going too fast too. And because if I don't have the cruise control set, my foot just finds its comfortable spot right up against the firewall. And that isn't good if you don't got a governor on your truck. Well, anyway, this guy's trucks didn't have no governor on them, or I don't remember what kind of governor it did have, but it was well over the speed limit, which in Oregon at that time was 55 miles per hour, and his truck would go a lot faster than that. Well, anyway, so I pushed it getting down there, and for me, pushing it is, +5, +7 miles per hour over the speed limit. So I probably did 62 all the way down there, which is about 2 mile an hour faster than I would normally do. But I don't ever stop, so I made good time. So anyway, got down there, swapped trailers. Guy was waiting for me, and trick was we both had to make it back within a certain time limit. And so I just turned around and turn and burn the way I went. So I'm headed north, and I'm about an hour south of Portland. And I got my phone with me, and back in those days, my phone was in a bag, and I had like the first digital bag phone in that whole region. Paid $600 for it. I know that isn't anything compared to phones today, but that was pretty pricey for a phone then. And but it was powerful, and I got better signal than anybody else when it come to cell signal. It was a very powerful. If I get cancer, I'm gonna get leg cancer, because that's where my bag phone sat, was right next to my leg. If it was in my pickup, it was on the hump where the tranny is, and the antenna was right next to my leg. And if it was in my truck, it was on the floor over there next to my leg. So if I ever get cancer, it'll probably be in my right leg. I'm just saying. So anyway, so I'm headed back about an hour south of Portland, and my phone, I'm dealing with my own business on the phone, doing business and that type of thing. And I think I was dealing with a driver that I had made a mistake and co-signed something for him. And so he was mad because I said I was going to report him to his pastor if he didn't make his payments on time, and the company kept coming after me for his payments. And I said I was going to tell his friends and his pastor if he didn't do something about it. It was a Russian guy. Anyway, so he calls me up on the phone, and he's screaming at me, "You called my pastor! You called my friends!" It was about all I could pick up in English that he was saying. He was just mad. And then he hung up on me. And I called him back. I don't remember his name. I called him back, and I said, "Such and such?" And he says, "Hello?" And I said, "All you have to do is make your payment, okay?" "Okay." And then I hung up. So my heart rate's up, dealing with that guy. My brother called. He was driving one of my trucks, and he was in Northern California, I think in the snow. And so he was having troubles. Anyway, so I'm dealing with issues on the phone while I'm driving a truck, and I'm coordinated some of it through my mom, because she ran the business office. My mom and dad were our partners, and she ran the business office in Oregon, and so I'm coordinating some of the junk through her that has to be done. Anyway, so I hang up my phone, and it's like I look down at my speedometer, it's like I'm doing 65 miles an hour in a 55 zone. I'm like, holy schmoly, I'm just whipping right along here. And I was in the middle lane on a 3-lane. On my side was 3 lanes. I was in the middle lane, and so I looked over, and I just passed a big truck. So I turned on my signal, and he flashed his lights at me, and I move over to the right lane. As I move over to the right lane, I look back at my left-hand mirror, and right behind me was an Oregon State patrolman. And I'm like, uh-oh, I think I'm had. And so I pulled over in the right lane and slowed down to I probably slowed down to 58 or something like that, maybe 60, and because I gave you 5. And so anyway, he pulled in behind me, and I was like, yep, I think I'm gonna have a chat with him probably. So we got up to the Woodburn Scale on I-5. It was closed going northbound at that time, And he flicked on his lights, and I pulled into the closed scale, and he followed me in there. And he gets out of his car and walks up to me. And the first thing I noticed, he wasn't a young guy. The second thing I noticed was he had a lot of hash marks on his sleeve, which meant he'd been in service for a long time. And he had a great big grin on his face. And he said, well, sir, he says, are you in a hurry today? And I said, yeah. I said, but actually not in as big a hurry as you saw me in. And he goes, oh, do tell. And I said, it's just going to be an excuse. I said, you hear excuses all day long. I said, I'm not going to give you an excuse. I just write me the ticket. I deserve it. And he says, oh, go ahead. Humor me. He says, what do you got? What do you got for a story? So I told him the whole story about this guy that, you know, was in the contract. He saw what name of the company was on the side of my trailers. And I was just like trying to help a friend out. And he's behind. And, you know, and I said, I was on the phone talking to, that time you could actually talk on the phone. Nobody got mad at you. And I was talking to somebody that had my heart rate up, and I realized that, you know, I was passing everybody in sight, and I slowed down once I started realizing, and I said, then it's when I saw you. So anyway, so he says, well, what kind of shape your logbook in? And I said, oh, it's good. My logbook's always good, because my logbook always was good. I always made sure it was legal, up to the minute. I always, you know, last time I did a duty change, I always put my lines in there and that type of thing. And I says, it's good. I says, it's always up to date. And he goes, well, can I see it? I'm like, yeah. I grabbed my book. I got my book over here from my logbook, and this doesn't have my logbook in it, but I used to have something like this with my logbook in it. I open it up, and I'm staring at a great big blank page for the day. And I'm like, I looked at him outside the window, and I had my door open. I said, well, I said, looks pretty blank to me. And I said, just give me the ticket. I knew that was going to be like a $300 ticket just for that. And I'm like, just give me the ticket. I'm not even making an excuse. And he goes, all right. Does that have anything to do with this guy being behind and everything? And I said, yeah. He was like, go. And I just totally spaced it, just trying to help the guy out, I guess. And he goes, well, let me see your license, and I'll go check you out. He says, why don't you draw some lines on there while I'm checking your license out? I said, yes, sir. So anyway, I drew lines on there according to what I did that day when I got to Wolf Creek, and when I got to the Oregon State Patrol or Oregon Highway Patrol, OSP, Oregon State Patrol stop at Woodburn. I drew that line on there too. And so anyway, he comes walking up, and he gave me a warning. And he says, just lower down a little bit, all right? He says, I'm just going to give you a warning. And he says, have a nice day. And I said, thank you, sir. I says, I didn't expect that. I was like, that's mercy, man. And I said, thank you. And he says, have a good one. Be safe. So away I went. I had a lot of respect for that guy. And but it takes all kinds, and generally speaking, some of them guys that have been in that job for a long time, it can sour them. All they ever see is people that lie to them and give them a hard time and outrage at them and all that kind of stuff, or they have to deal with people. I had a friend who was an Oregon State patrolman, and he told me some of the stories. It's like, you just can't believe what people will do, and anyway, but on the other hand, you get some guys that get into a job like that, and they kind of feel like they're gunslingers, and I don't mean that in the most negative sense. Well, it's possible. I know it's real popular to be down on the police and everything like that now, but especially across our country in different places and this type of thing, and I don't want to comment on that too much, but it's a slice of society, and they have a difficult job. I have several friends that are police officers it's a difficult job, and sometimes it takes difficult people to do the difficult job. And so anyway, my next story, I had another friend at that same company who had one truck, and anytime he could get a little extra work, he would do a little extra work. And so on the weekend, so he had a regular night run all week long, 5 nights out of the week. And then every now and again, they would give him something to do on the weekend, but he would need a team to do it. So anyway, he and I fished together. And so as opposed to giving me money, he'd buy stuff for my boat, like downriggers and stuff like that. And I had a pretty nice Bayliner trophy that I went out into deep water with and that type of thing. So downriggers were kind of nice. You put a big old cannonball weight on there. If you're going for salmon, you can drop them straight down and you can get your shrimp and whatever you're dragging around, squid, straight down behind the boat, and you can get more lines out. You can run them at different. Anyway, it's a pretty cool thing, and they're not super cheap. And so anyway, he'd just buy me something like that to make up for working for him. And anyway, we were gonna go to Idaho, I think, from Portland, and it was a round trip. Might have been Snowville, Utah. I just don't remember now. But it was around that same time in the mid '90s. And he says, "Hey, you want to go with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go with you, Jeff. That sounds like fun. I need something for my boat anyway." So anyway, we took off in his truck, and I was driving out. And usually when it's kind of a couple of friends like that, it's not so much just drive, sleep. It's more like drive, yak, an awful lot, sit in a jump seat and yak together and that type of thing. But so anyway, we got to Pendleton at the bottom of Cabbage Hill, and it's a 6% grade. It's, oh crud, I can't remember how long it is. I think it's 8 miles long. It's a big grade. It goes up, winds up and around and all around. And when you're at the bottom of it, you can see big trucks way up the hill, just working their way up through the hills up there. Anyway, at night. Well, anyway, it was nighttime, and it was, I don't know, late winter, early spring, something like that. And there was spitting snow a little bit here and there, but the road was just wet. There wasn't no snow on the road. But that can change from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill pretty darn quick. And it's not a high hill, but for that area, it was a high hill. And so anyway, at the bottom of the hill, they had the chain law up. And the chain law, and in Oregon, they had just started their hardcore chain law, whereas like if the chain law is up and you don't got chain on, you can get a ticket for not having chain on. And it's, wet pavement. It's not even slippery. And I looked over at Jeff and I said, "So you think I should hang some chains on drive? It's your chain. And the pavement just wet. It's going to just chew the crud out of your chains." And he goes, "You're driving, not me. Your decision." I'm like, "Well, crud." I says, I know there's probably snow up on top, but there's no snow here, and there probably won't be for 3/4 of the way up the hill. And I says, and I think once I get up there, people we were contracted to had fairly light trailers, so you could keep up a pretty good bit of speed. And so if you got to a slick spot, you had plenty of momentum to get through it. Well, anyway, and I'm like, let's go for it. It's nighttime, ain't nobody out. Let's just rip and let her done. So anyway, I went flying up the hill. Sure enough, it was not that bad. Got to the very top, and there was a skiffing snow on the road. Nothing to worry about. I was doing a speed limit. And so anyway, once you get to the top of Cabbage Hill, you go past where on the other side of the road is a scale. You go past that, it was closed. And you go down a hill, and you go up a hill, and you go up and down a couple little small whoop-de-doos, and you go past Dead Man's Pass. And somewhere in that neighborhood of the rest area in Dead Man's Pass, if you're familiar with that, anybody, there was a bear, which another word for Oregon State Trooper. And the reason why they call them a bear is because they wear the Smokey the Bear hat, just like
only you can prevent wildfires.
Well, that's Oregon State Troopers wear the Smokey the Bear hat. That's why they're called bears or Smokies. So anyway, there was a Oregon State patrolman sitting in like a Jeep Cherokee or something like that over on the side of the road, and he was just sitting there watching people go by, but there wasn't anybody hardly going by, just me. Anyway, sure enough, he jumped out behind me because I didn't have no chains on. I'm already at the top of the hill, and I didn't have no chains on. And he flicked on his lights right away and pulled me over on the shoulder of the road. And he walked up, and he says, "Where's your chains at?" I said, "In the side box where they belong." And he goes, "You see the chain law up?" And I says, "Yeah." And I said, "The road was just wet coming all the way up the hill." And I said, "The idea is for safety is to keep you from spinning out and being a road hazard in the middle of the road." But I says, "But you'd have to be an idiot in order to spin out on a hill that's just wet. Wasn't even icy." He goes, that law was up. He says, you got to have chain on. And he says, I'll hold the flashlight while you hang your chains. So anyway, I went out there and hung chains, and then he wrote me a $300 ticket. So this was a guy that the letter of the law was more important than the spirit of the law. The other guy, the spirit of the law was more important than the letter of the law. And that's really what separates the men from the boys when it comes to police officers and that type of thing. Some guys are really interested in public awareness and safety and helping out the public and you know, real philanthropists and altruists that want to help people and save victims and things like this. And then you got other guys that want to use a position to their own little power trip thing. It's like that in all walks of life. It's just rougher when you run into somebody that's in a position of authority that's doing something like that. But I like to think about that Oregon State Patrolman with all the hash marks on his sleeve and who smiled at me and could have wrote me $600 worth of ticket and didn't. You know, well, maybe not 600, probably more closer to about $450 or something like that. Logbook was 300, ticket for speeding probably would have been in 180 range at that time. So, but anyway, he could have nailed me, and he didn't. The other guy wrote me a $300 ticket, which did not even pay for the boat stuff that Jeff bought me for my boat. I had to pay for that out of my pocket because, just like he said, you know, and that's the way. I didn't even ask Jeff for the money because it's like, you know, you're driving, your decision. Well, it's also my ticket. So anyway, I got it. But there you go. So I could tell you about in Montana. Used to be that they put chain law up, and it used to be that way in Oregon for that matter. You put chain law up if you don't hang chains and you spin out, they'll write you a ticket. But if you hang chains and spin out, you know, they won't write you a ticket. But if you're barefoot and you spin out, you got no chains on, they're gonna write you a ticket. That's all there is to it. And it was like in the late 90s. It was before our Alaska trip, Darren and I. And I can't remember who was pulling the trailer and who was bobtailing. It was either one of us, because one of us was going to pick up a brand new trailer in Portland at DeBeal, and the other of us already had a brand new trailer that got made in Billings. And we were going to Portland to load Pennzoil to go to Alaska. And so anyway, we're headed towards Portland. This is like September, I think it was. And they got probably about 18 inches of snow on Lookout Mountain Pass on the Idaho-Montana border. Anyway, and they were just starting at that time to start cracking down on people because traffic was picking up on I-90. It used to be not very much traffic on I-90, especially when the weather got bad, because we got a lot of bad weather. But the traffic started picking up, so they started getting a little more strict with some of the rules like chain law and that type of thing. Anyway, and so I had my CB radio on. I was talking to Darren on the CB radio, and somebody said something about hanging chains and this, that, and the other thing, and I just said, well, I'm just going to let her rip, and I'll just worry about it some other day. And he says, no, he says, you probably ought to hang some chain. It's pretty bad up there. This truck spun out all over the hill and this type of thing. And I said, oh, okay. I says, well, I'll just go around him and I'll see you on the other side. And I was just kind of being flippant, you know. Sometimes you kind of flipping on the radio. Everybody kind of throws each other some garbage every now and again. Anyway, and this guy says, no, he says, you probably ought to stop and put your chains on. I've been chatting with the deputy sheriff apparently. And he says, I'm deputy sheriff, and I say you need to put your chains on because there's trucks spun out up on that hill. And so I was like, okay. And I've been over that hill a whole bunch of times, all right? But I said to him, I says, well, you're going to have to help me then. I says, I ain't never hung no chain on this hill. I says, you're going to have to show me where the chain up area is. You could kind of hold my hand and show me where I just give him a hard time. And it's like, I knew where the chain, he's over there, you know, trying to give me directions to the chain up area. It's all they had just put in at that time a whole bunch of them great big mercury vapor lights over top of the chain up area. They just built a great big wide laden at the bottom of the hill for chaining up and everything like this. I knew where it was, but I was just giving them a bunch of garbage, and I'm like, I don't have a clue where that chain up area is. I ain't never used it. This is gonna be the first time ever I hung chains on this hill. Now, that wasn't exactly true. I've hung chains on that hill many a time, but there were times it didn't even help. I had all the chain on I could get and still spun out. Couldn't go any further. But anyway, and it was probably a good idea to put chain on. There was a lot of snow up on the hill, but just that white, slimy, thick. Yeah, I know snow. I know snow is white, but it was just thick, watery, slimy. 18 inches, 16, 18 inches of snow. It was just nasty, and so it probably was good that I had chains on, but who can know, I'd rather put chains on after I spin out than before I spin out. And that's just because I'm kind of lazy and don't like hanging chain, all right? And plus, I've been in so many situations where, okay, just remind me. Somebody put it in comments and remind me if you want to hear the chain story to end all chain stories of like the most ridiculous thing about hanging chains. Just ask me, somebody in the comments, tell me the chain story about California and hanging chains for Donner Pass. That's a whole nother story. If somebody puts that in the comments, I'll tell that story and it'll end up on the video in a couple of weeks, all right? If nobody puts anything in comments, I'll probably just forget. But that is probably the worst trip I ever made in my life was, and it went, and that was just only part of the trip, was going over Donner Pass with California chain restrictions. I'll just leave it at that. It's a long, involved story, and you want to know what it's like to have 103 fever and have to go through the garbage I had to go through, all right? So somebody put it in the comments, and I'll tell the story. If not, you don't care. I don't care, right? Hey, but I'm the Truck and Tanker Yanker, and this was a real story I just told. 2 real stories about the Oregon State Patrol, about good cop, bad cop, and I got respect for all the cops. They got a rough job, and not a whole lot of thanks, especially now in this current climate. Not a lot of appreciation for them. But I tell you what. Nobody remembers the Wild West, but I'm a historian. I like history. And the Wild West was just that. It was wild. And we don't want to go back to the Wild West. You think you might come out on top, and when it comes to just you're tough and you're going to be able to fight your way to the top of the road warrior dog pile, you're probably not right. I'm just saying. There's always somebody tougher. So, always. Anyway, but I just want you all to take it easy, all right? I want you to keep the shiny side up and the dirty side down, all right? Now, hood ornament's right directly in front of me, and you need to look a little further than that, like up to 12 seconds down the road, right? And don't be a bumper sticker, because that means you got glue all over one side of you, probably. Stay away from the people in front of you. Yeah, they're going to dive in front of you. It happens to me every single day, nearly every hour of the day. People cutting me off and jumping in front. Just call them whatever name you want to and let off the throttle and open up the space in between you so you don't just cram into the guy. Okay, I'm supposed to be winding down here, but I'll just tell you this real quick. Last week, had a situation where the guy in front of me wasn't paying attention, and because he was big enough, I couldn't see around him very good, but I could see that way off up ahead, I saw brake lights, I saw emergency lights. They weren't like emergency, it was like more like tow truck lights, just yellow ones going like that, and I thought something's going on up there, so I let off the throttle, and I had a big space in front of me. All of a sudden, the guy in front of me, he just went like this, and he skidded off onto the shoulder, and directly in front of him was stopped cars right in the road. I couldn't see around him. I mean, it was like a pickup with a camper all over him, and I couldn't see what was directly in front of him, but what was directly in front of him was stopped. But because I saw that way up ahead, people were hitting their brakes, and all that kind of trickles on back. Everybody up ahead was hitting their brakes, and there was, emergency truck lights, yellow ones anyway. Because I could see all that. I'd already let out of it, and when that guy went skidding to a halt, he went down the shoulder, otherwise he'd have hit that guy directly in front of him. Well, because I had enough space between me and that guy, I was able to slow down quick, even though the guy in front of me was stopped. So, don't be a bumper sticker. It makes you look unprofessional. Me? I look like a professional there. I'm just saying. And that's because I'm the truck and tanker yanker, and I am a professional. I've been doing this for 35 plus years, and I don't even know how many millions of miles I got under, because I don't know. One time I kept track, and I forgot to keep track of it anymore. But anyway, so don't be a bumper sticker. Again, I ask you to subscribe. Tell all your friends about this. We're all about family-friendly humor and stories, and I got family. I got grandkids. I got a bunch of grandkids. I got 13 grandkids, and I don't want to be a bad example for them. So I'm not going to be a bad example for your kids or grandkids. So, matter of fact, I have a this is just an aside right here, all right? I have a grandson who was scared of me because, well, I'm scary, and I go like that. And so little kids oftentimes they're scared of me, and then once they realize that I'm not that scary, I'm only a little scary, then they're curious, and then they come sneaking up to me, and I go like that, and then they run away. But anyway, so this particular grandson watched all of my videos, and every time I see him, he's like, and he's only like a little over a year old, Grandpa, because he's seen all my videos, and I don't understand anything that's going on. And all he sees is his grandpa over there, making face contortions and all sorts of stuff, and waving his arms around and talking and this type of thing, and like this, truck and tanker yanker, and anyway, it caused him to love me. So anyway, maybe your kids and grandkids will love me too, because I'm a truck and tanker yanker, and I do Dr. Seuss. Right behind my chair, I got a whole shelf full of Dr. Seuss I read to my grandkids. Yep. Well, anyway, so hit the subscribe button, so that way your grandkids can see me, and maybe if somebody asks in the comments, I'll read a Dr. Seuss right here on the video, and I'll do it just like I do for my grandkids with voices and everything, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm just saying, but you have to put that in the comments, because I'm not going to do it otherwise. All right, if nobody else wants to see it, then whatever. All right, I'm the truck and tanker yanker, and you're the public, and I'm gone.